Welcome to the Orca. You know, while the Lower Mainland mayors like Kennedy, Stewart, and Doug McCallum get a lot of airtime, BC is a whole lot bigger than just Vancouver and Surrey. Bob Price is a Kamloops fixture and a 30-year veteran of Radio NL. He's also a cornerstone of the Orca's resident pod of contributors, providing crucial insights and reports from BC's interior. Now, Bob recently wrote a series of articles for the Orca called Meet the Mayors, where he interviewed several mayors from the interior: Kamloops Mayor Ken Christian, Kelowna's Colin Basran, and Prince George's Lynn Hall. Bob joined us now via Skype from Kamloops to tell us more about what's happening in these vitally important BC communities. Bob, hello.
Hey, good day to you, Rick. You know what? It's very incredible when you start doing a drilling down. And I'm sad to say this, but these interviews and other features that I've done along the way in my column, The Price is Right, which, by the way, I did not name.
It fits, though.
Yeah, well, Mrs. Price would disagree with you, but that said, but what we've attempted to do to bring the story of the interior in various ways, the mayors and other business leaders focused much more in the interior than elsewhere per se. What you realize quickly is the fact that sadly there are still two British Columbias here.
Yes.
The interests, the priorities are very different, as I say, beyond hope. So, yeah, in Kelowna, they're dealing with unparalleled growth. And how do they manage that growth? In Prince George, Mayor Lynn Hall, as well, is seeing growth. And the prospect of a lot more growth with Kitimat LNG being feeder to that industry. So they're preparing on that front. In Kamloops, stuck right in the middle, Kamloops is seeing incredible growth for several reasons. It's no longer just a mining and a lumber town. The university here is an incredible economic force, and there are many others. So there are differences, there are similarities, and there are challenges throughout.
Well, let's talk about that. What are the similarities and what are the common complaints? Let me ask it that way.
Common complaints. In many ways, parts of the interior disenfranchised. Given the government change, the new Democrat political power is very much focused, as you know, in the Lower Mainland. Right. Previously, the Christy Clark government economic or political base very much interior. When you take a look at, her cabinet, 2/3, darn 60% of it was out of the interior in the Christy Clark cabinet. So now the interior is feeling like they have to kind of fight for their turf and remind this government about the importance of economic resources and where the wealth is built. And
because what we overlook is that it's not only two political realities, the Lower Mainland and the rest of the province, but it's two economic realities as well, with very different problems, very different goals.
Exactly. Some of those problems are crossing the line. Affordability, of course, a long-running concern in the Lower Mainland region. That is more and more becoming an issue in all, the Prince George, Kamloops, Kelowna, those three cities, the three interior cities. But, not to the extent of the Lower Mainland, and they still use that lower cost of living as a lure to try to attract new business, etc.
But you're also dealing with other problems from the Lower Mainland. Now I understand homelessness is an issue, and a lack of social services is an issue.
That's exactly where I was going. Right across the board, homelessness has grown dramatically in Toronto. I mean, you can take that problem into Cranbrook as well, Penticton, Burn. It's an issue everywhere. And all three cities have their own strategies to deal with it. Kelowna is pretty proud of what they're doing. Kamloops, Prince George likewise. The opening of many more shelters, and especially cold weather shelters at this time of the year. So, yeah, that's a commonality throughout the interior. That problem
Let's look at the economics for a moment, because I know Kamloops Mayor Ken Christian, uh, in your reporting, is in favor of the Trans Mountain Pipeline because he says what's going through my community by truck and by rail would scare people to death. So what about the other mayors, and what about the Interior and its feeling about building this pipeline?
Well, I'll tell you, that pipeline that is a hot here. Because, I mean, take Kamloops, for example. CP rail tracks. This is a junction, and if there's a malfunction at the junction, Kamloops, the amount of oil, for example, rolls through Kamloops each day is eye-popping, whether it's on CN, CP. And we know that, I did a recent column, oil aboard, and that was a common, and it doesn't exactly do it justice. The what if factor in that is huge. So they turn around and the mayors and people in general in the Interior, and it will turn around and say, "You've got to be kidding me. We're going to run oil. You're so concerned about another tanker going off the BC coast down, out of Burnaby, yet you're having no problem moving scads of oil, along the Thompson, feeding to the Fraser. Where does that oil go if it spills in the Fraser? Uh, you know, and there are a hell of a lot more train derailments in this province than spills off the coast."
So what are these three mayors in particular, what are they doing to try and get the attention of Victoria and the NDP government?
Constant communication. They figure the way the approach is, this is the government that we have to deal with. That's the reality, and they're trying to get that message through. They're also detecting conflicting signals, i.e., the current, right now in the headlines in the last few days, the blockade and the Mounties moving in up north. To make regarding the LNG pipeline by TransCanada, soon to be called TC Energy. I mean, it's all communication, but they are also detecting a lot of conflicting signals out of this NDP government, and they don't like it.
And of course, we're now almost into a federal election campaign. There is an election coming up later. What's the communication like with the Trudeau government?
Less concerned on that front. All three mayors would probably tell you that when it comes to there's not a lot of interaction between municipalities and the federal government in relation to what it is between the province and the local government. But and all three mayors I asked about that. Do they have big concerns on the federal front? Not so much. Not so much. They do want this government to get that Kinder Morgan. I was going to say Trans Mountain. Of course, it's not Trans Mountain anymore. Or it is Trans Mountain. It's not Kinder Morgan, I should say. So they want that pipeline built. They desperately want that pipeline built, and that project for a community like Kamloops will be huge for jobs, at least during the construction phase.
Well, interesting times ahead, certainly, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us.
There is one more, Rick, if I may. I'm just going to tell you another concern that has come to light regarding Kamloops in the last couple of days. Kamloops is the actual head office of the BC Lottery Corporation. And there's a lot of signals and sources reporting that the BC Lottery Corporation may be forced to shelve a plan, if not shelve, at the very least delay a plan for a new head office in. That is getting a lot of attention here. David Easy, minister in charge, not available to comment, but I'm sure he's going to face a lot of questions, if not by reporters soon. Certainly in the legislature when the House goes back in February.
All right, as two old reporters, what do your sources say? What do you think is going to happen then?
I look at the politics. I look at the politics of it. This NDP government has kept itself out of the financial pickle by basically a whole lot of taxes. And so they're going to have to start watching their pennies. And then you look at the politics of it, and you see in Kamloops, you see Peter Millibar and Todd Stone, I think you can read between the lines.
Interesting. Well, we'll follow that story. Bob,
We
thanks
will
again.
indeed.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.